Hello everyone, this is Arda speaking. Welcome to my slides, Effective Presentation Skills. Now, today we will briefly talk about uh, some aspects of public speaking in a way to show an example of a good presenter, and we will talk about Simon Sinek as an example to one of the greatest speakers popularly known today. I hope that you will take notes and apply what you have been learning in this course into your own presentations and public speaking skills. Now, presentation skills are multitude in number. There are a lot of things to consider. Delivery style, background preparation, preparing the content, planning the delivery, and so on. But these are just the main bulks of information. Then each of these bulks have numerous subheadings. For instance, when you consider delivery style, you have to think about enthusiasm, avoiding jargon, maintaining eye contact, using trigger notes or index cards rather than having, lengthy paragraphs in hand, and avoiding fiddling, and so on. When a speaker wants to give a speech, his or her main concern or objective is to convey a message to the audience. And to do so, he must indeed emphasize on the method he uses to deliver the speech. He must take into considerate on his outlook, the way he or she dresses, and the accessories he or she uses, and credibility. Now, parts of these things you learn in your rhetoric and argumentation course. There are also other things to consider, such as the channel, that is to say, having used the nonverbal clues or pictorial visual messages or oral, something to listen to. So apart from these, we also have that bulk of the message we want to convey, which includes the content, the style, and the structure or the order of information to be given. So by doing these, by considering these and doing these, we will be able to convey our messages, our speeches effectively. Well, what are the qualities of a good speech? Now, a good speech should have just the right amount of information that the audience can absorb. So that is to say, you cannot expect your audience to listen to tremendous amount of information and understand each and all of them. So your messages, the content of your messages must be just the right size. That is to say, they shouldn't be too lengthy, and they shouldn't be too small, so that your audience would say, "What's that? We know them already." So apart from this content, this bulk of information, your content must be arranged in sequential order, or at least from the most important to the least, or from the most impressive to the least. And whenever we have a problem in our speech, we must have a backup plan. That is to say, if we forget something, we must have a story in our minds ready to be given. And there are some certain points that we deliver during our speech. We have to repeat some information in different words. both to clarify ourselves and also to affect the audience, to impress them and to make them understand what we are really trying to say. So points should not be repeated, in a very obvious manner in the same word order, but must be delivered through other points, through other examples. In that sense, figures of speech, such as a metaphor, a simile, a synecdoche, should be used to clarify ourselves. Now, what is the speaker's impact? Well, oftentimes when we deliver a speech, we focus on what we are going to say. We spend most of our time on finding information. Well, true, the content is very important. What you say is going to be the major point of your delivery, presentation. But that's not it. Speaker's impact, as research by Dr. Mehrabian from University of California in Los Angeles showed, the speaker's impact on audience largely um, is due to how the presenter looks. So the impact you have as a presenter on your audience, the 55% of this impact comes from how you look. Because the first thing your audience notices is you, your body, your existence. So in that sense, how you look, how you present yourselves, and the accessories you use, and the way you use your accessories wisely has a great impact on your audience. So rule number one, look good. And the second thing is how you sound. You have to be credible. You have to be strong. You have to be empathetic. And your audience must find you sympathetic. So you have to smile rather than being, looking stubborn or angry or meaningless. And only 7% of what you give to your audience as for your impact, only 7% of your impact comes from what you say. So, what is the impact on your audience? Well, basically, in a nutshell, it depends on three major things. One, you have to look like an artwork. Two, you have to sing like a nightingale. And three, you have to tell a great story. Otherwise, yes, people will fall asleep, they will be discarded, and they will simply prefer to be somewhere else rather than listening to you or watching you presenting. Now, my online research showed me that Simon Sinek is considered to be a great presenter. And I tried to understand what makes Simon a great presenter. I don't know if you knew him. I didn't. But my research revealed that he is considered to be a great presenter. So I have collected data to understand what makes Simon a great presenter. So step by step, we will try to understand by listening to and by reading about what people say about Simon. We will try to understand what makes him a great presenter. Now, the first reason that makes Simon a good presenter, a great presenter, is that he reaches every member in the audience. That is to say, no one is left out in his presentations. When he delivers his speech, he welcomes, he invites, he touches everyone's heart and minds. He has a person says about him, and an audience member tells this about him, I quote, he has this ability to really be level-headed with every single member of the audience. He talks about experiences that are relatable. So one thing we can learn about this is that we have to consider every single member of the audience in order to be a good presenter. The second reason is that he is all emotions. Again, from the mouth of another audience member, Simon, he simply taps into the emotions of his audience to really persuade them to look at things his way. So that is to say, emotional effect is really important. Not only your information, the information you provide to your audience must have some mental meaning, but also it has to have a certain emotional appealing, emotional meaning for your audience. Another reason that makes Simon a great presenter is that the stories he tells, his presence, his approach, the way he questions, the way he uh, uh, talks to his audience is all memorable. So you cannot easily forget him delivering his speech. A member in his audience says this, I quote, the great thing about Sinek is that he actually insists a perfectly crafted message isn't enough to woo one's audience. So, perfectly created message, great content is not only enough. He instead believes that other techniques must be used to make sure the message a presenter is communicating is not only well received, but is remembered and acted upon. Well, what does it mean? It means that, the message you give is basically made up of one single sentence, or even less than that. But the way you deliver this, the way you give it to your audience must use many different branches of human experiences, such as it must have some certain anecdotes, stories, evidence, some laughter, some sadness, and some visuals, some audio materials. All these techniques help you become a memorable, unforgettable presenter. The fourth reason that makes Simon a great presenter is that he is found to be human. What does it mean to be human? As one of his audience members says, Sinek is not a hype marketer. He's not a great marketer, but he is genuine. It means that the examples and stories Sinek uses in his presentations are all based on human experience. We are all very familiar with his stories and examples. Now, again, oftentimes, as I have mentioned before in the beginning of these slides, in the beginning of the session, oftentimes we focus on that content of our speech, which is largely descriptive in nature or argumentative in nature. Yes, but Such information, such knowledge should not be dry. They should be accessorized with some human experience. Stories about families, for instance, about places we go, or the situations in which we find ourselves. Um, Speaking of which, right now, this experience we share now, that is to say, this online learning and teaching experience is something unique that I had never experienced in my life before. True, I taught some online courses, but we were not all stuck into our houses, into our homes. So we are all experiencing something new, and reminding this experience, for instance, is what makes our speech uh, humane and what makes us as presenters human beings. So we should not, even if we talk as researchers or as presenters who know what they are talking about, we should not forget that we have to relate ourselves with our audiences. They must feel that we are one of them, that we come from the same path and we go through the same path altogether, which is not an easy task, but with the stories we tell, with considering our own experiences as human beings related to the topic, or as openers to our topic, we can make a difference as presenters. So why is Simon good? Reason number 5, he simply gives. What does it mean? I quote, Sinek believes it's not about what your audience gives a presenter, but what a presenter gives to his or her audience. Now, oftentimes, when we find ourselves in front of an audience, when we say something to them, when we deliver a speech, we look at them and we want them to laugh, cry, take notes, uh, listen to us, all ears and all eyes, and audience making no noise. They are perfect listeners, perfect audience members. Well, this is only one part of it, but it's not the whole picture. Rather than focusing on and dealing with the audience, we have to focus on ourselves. We have to satisfy our audience. We have to give to our audience, and our focus should be on what they, not on what they give to us, but what we give to them as presenters. Considering this, we can say that the way we look at them is very important. William Ayers, for instance, says about education, teaching starts with seeing the student. That is to say, how you see the student is important. How you see the audience is important. In our case, although it sounds ironic or antithetical, there is truth in this. That is to say, we have to see the audience even before we appear in front of them. We have an eye contact with them. But we have to see the audience as people who are to be given something by us. We are going to give our content. We are going to give our emotional tone to these people. That's why we have to focus on ourselves as we have to consider ourselves as givers, not as takers. And reason number 6 is he makes connections. That is to say, I quote, Sinek has a habit of making strong connections with his audience during his presentations. An example that was noted was when he looks at one member of the audience in the eyes for an entire sentence or thought, then looks at another member of the audience, still maintaining eye contact for a new sentence or thought. So we have to make every single member in the audience respectable and um, observed. We have to see through them. We have to have that contact. So these are the references I used. You can learn more about Simon Sinek, and you can learn more about public speaking skills by having a look at J.D. Jeffries' work. Thank you for participating today. Make sure that you take notes, which will help you improve your listening and note-taking skills, and apply all these bits of information and anecdotal evidence into your presentations. Don't forget to make use of your knowledge of rhetorics and argumentation as well, which are all somehow similar, supportive of each other. Have a great week. Have a great time. I hope that things are kind of difficult these days, but we have to keep smiling. We have to keep safe.